So in lab 10, we're just gonna keep building on here for a little bit. But in lab 10, what we're gonna do is we're gonna finish off our ETL process. And again, the ETL process is we extracted, we transform, and we load. And the extraction part we didn't actually get to see because we already had the CSV file. And it's not quite clear cut because we're going to do a little bit of the transforming in this step and the loading part in this step. And we kind of did part of the loading part before, but really this is because we have it in a transaction upload table. We have it in our, I like to call it the holding pen, mostly because I grew up on a dairy farm. So in most barns, there's a place where you kind of bring all the cows into a holding pen that's right outside the barn. So we had one. It was a pen that just was right alongside our barn. And then that's the cows would go from there directly into the barn. That way you're not bringing them all the way, trying to find them out in the field. You bring them all into the holding pen. And then after they're milked, then they can just go wander out through. So that way, it's basically your cue to get milked. And so I like to call these holding pens because they're a place where we can upload stuff and then pull from to actually do the actually insert, because we're going to put this information into our transaction tables, kind of the big one. We're also going to put some into rental and rental item. But transaction is going to be our big one, because basically, essentially, I like to compare it to if you had a Square reader, maybe you could dump CSV files from your Square reader. Let's say that our movie rental place decides to use Square. We're going to take all of that Square data and put it into our own system. And normally what we would do is we're kind of going through this process manually. And then actually in lab 11, we're going to kind of make it so it'll rerun over and over and over. And then that way, if we really wanted to, we could have the whole thing scripted. And so it would do it nightly. So that's kind of what most ETL processes become, is they become these automated workflows for data to go from one system to the other. A lot of integration. So what we're going to do is in lab 10 is we're going to kind of do some brunt work. And just so you know, lab 10, even though we're building on top of lab 9, lab 10 is isolated, meaning that this is really just a work session, but we're going to call it a lab. Because once we get to lab 11, we're actually going to skip calling lab 10, and then we're going to go from 9 all the way to 11 in our call stack. So lab 10 is we're just really going to do some work, because we're going to build some queries. So that way, when we get to lab 11, it's nice and easy. Most of the work's done for us. Lab 11, if everything's done right in lab 10, lab 11 should be pretty slick. So let's jump in. So the way that I like to explain this, just before you even start reading the instructions, is the big challenge of this lab is that we have to map data. And there's a difference between mapping data and translating data. And really importantly, the difference that when we map data, it's one-to-one. We just bring it over. When we translate data, that means we have to kind of do something to get at it. And so when you hear me talk about map and translation, when we map something, it's just straight copy. If we translate something, it's because we have to take, like, for example, a 3-day rental, and we have to turn that into a common lookup ID. Or in other words, so here's a good example. In our transaction upload table, right, we have our first name, middle name, and last name. But we need to translate that to a contact ID. And so we have to do a join to contact and get the first and middle name and last name. You can see us comparing it here and connect it. So map means we just copy it. Translate means we have to transform it in some way. We have to take it from first, middle name, last name, turn it into a contact ID. We have to go from 3-day rental to a common lookup ID, whether it's 1018 or whatever it is. So this one kind of gives you a little hint. So it kind of says, here's a select list that you can use to start off with. And then the goal here is we are trying to do a select list that's going to give us the stuff to insert into rental. So let's see. And the nice thing is they kind of give you some a nice little set of instruction here. So let's see if we can pull this here. And the tricky part to this lab is that we want to make sure that we don't have any duplicates. Because like I said, we're going to make this rerunnable. And so we want to make sure that we have everything. So it's going to handle duplicates for us. Basically, it's going to say, oh, you're duplicate. We don't want to deal with that. And that's a big part of next week too. Let's get here to our, let's grab lab 10. Take and copy you. Rename you here real quick. Paste one file. There we go. Oh, I'm in lab 10. That's not what we wanted. Let's fix that real quick. Always helps to be in the right file, I guess. We're going to rename this to demo. Demo lab 10. And let's put that in our, let's cut you. Did I get that? Cut. And paste. There we go. Okay. Now let's open you up with Kwrite or Visual Studio. Let's do Visual Studio. All right. So let's take a look. So they kind of give us the bulk of it here, which is really nice. And what I would do is, so you'll see there's kind of two steps to step one. There's the step one, which we fix the query. And this is where we actually write the query. And then down here, it tells us it's an insert. And this is why, because really we're not trying to insert here. We're going to build the insert, but the insert is very temporary. And the only reason we're going to do the insert is because to make step 2 work, we have to have the rental, because we're going to do an insert into rental item, and then finally transaction. Because the select statement for number 2 would never work until we insert this stuff for step 1. So that's where we're going to start. And it tells us what we are going to be doing here. So let me grab my other window wherever it went, right here. And just know that I'm going to have this on the other screen. So if you need to follow along, we're looking at these bullet points right here, because it's going to walk us through exactly what to do. So it says there aren't any subqueries in this statement, and the distinct operator is required, which we already have right there. So we're good. And the nice thing is we don't even have to worry about the select list, which is usually the trickiest part. So from here, we just get to start writing our joins essentially. And it gives most of that to us. So it says join the member table. So we're going to say from member M to the contact table with an inner join. So we're going to say member M inner join contact C. You'll want to make sure you check your aliases though, because some of those are already there. So we can kind of assume that. So member M inner join contact C, and we're going to do that on, and it says on the surrogate key, which is the member ID column of both tables. So we can say member ID from member is equal to C dot member ID. Right? Those should match. Nice and easy. And then the next one is just says we join the foregoing result set, which means join the whatever came before with what follows. So join what became before with the results set of the join between member and contact to the transaction upload table. So now we're going to say inner join transaction upload. We're going to call that TU. We're going to say on. Now in here it says you affect that join by matching the account number in the member table with the account number in the transaction table. And the first name, middle name, and last name in the contact and transaction upload table. Now, this is the important part. Please note that the middle name column may contain a null value, which necessitates using a null value function. Because if we try to do an equal sign, it's not going to work. So let's just start with first, and then we'll go to middle, and then we'll go last. So C dot first name is equal to the transaction upload dot first name, because really what we're doing here is we're just and whenever people kind of get confused, I like to explain it in a way, because really what we're doing is we're just matching. If I ask you to manually match row to row, you could do that. Anyone, I think, at this level could do that. If I said, oh, here's all these papers that are people's accounts, or folders, here's all these people's account folders, I need you to go one by one through these papers and put them in the right folder. That's essentially what we're doing. And we're just telling the computer how to do it. So you just got to think through it logically as if they were pieces of paper. Each row in transaction upload is a piece of paper. We're just training a computer how to do it so we don't have to. So I like to take a look at transaction upload, and we're taking a look here, and wow, that is really bad. Set line size 250. Wow, that's bad. Let's try 150. There we go. So I like to take a look here. I like to pull up both tables. So there's transaction upload, and we are trying to get to rental. And so we can kind of take a look here, and you might need to bring up more than one. So let's describe contact, and then let's describe member. And usually I pull up all these, because a lot of times you don't know not all, most of the time you don't have someone giving you step-by-step instructions. So you kind of got to look, because really what we're doing is we're just trying to match wherever we can. And we know that from our query, we already have member and contact. So if we were going to go through here, I would just start with the table where all of our sources and see what we have. So account number, boom, we know that goes to member. First, middle name, and last name all go to contact. And that's where we're at right now. So don't get too confused about what's going on. Just know all we're doing is we're matching from one table to the other table, especially for right now where we're not doing any mapping or translating. Translating gets a little bit more tricky. So then we're going to take our middle name and equal that to RTU dot middle name. Now, like we talked about though, if middle name's null, we're going to get some mixed results because it can be null on either side. So what I like to do is use the null value function. And if the middle name is null, let's just replace it with, let's say, a capital X. And then we're going to do the same thing over here, because that way, if they're both null, X is equal to capital X. So you can use kind of whatever you want there. You could use null all caps if you wanted to, but I usually just throw in like an X or something. So it's nice and easy, but that way, if it's null here and it's null here, it'll be X equals X. If they have a middle name like Lily Luna, it'll be Luna and Luna, which is exactly what we want, which is why it's important in lab 6. That's why I was picky about those middle names, because it won't match here if we don't do it right. And then let's get our last name. So then we take our contact.last name is equal to transaction upload.last name. All right, and that kind of gets us to kind of where we want to be. Now, one thing that I would recommend is you can actually kind of take a copy of this, because sometimes it's nice that we don't have to pick and choose through all this, but sometimes it's nice to start from scratch, because we can actually run this and see exactly where we end up. So let's go ahead and run this, and you can see that we're missing an expression. So let's see what we're missing. Remember him, inner join on, where does it say I'm missing the expression here? On line 2. Oh, I have a comma here. Let's try that again. And now we're going to get a lot, but surprisingly, it's actually the exact number we wanted. And right now it's not selecting anything too meaningful. But what I like to do when I'm testing, so like, let's just pretend this is our test one. that I will copy and paste to, just because all that we really need is this bottom part, right? So what I like to do is I like to say m dot account number, because I like to always make sure that I'm matching up right. So let's just do exactly what our joins are on. So then let's do c dot last name to u dot last name, because basically what I'm doing is I'm just going to select all the different components and make sure they match. Go to tu dot last, and this is always good if you're troubleshooting, because we can see where things aren't quite working the way we expect them to. So now this starts to make a little bit more sense. And you'll notice we get a little less. That's because we have the distinct operator. But you can see that everything looks to be matching up. Oh, and I put the last name in here. So let's fix that. There we go. Ian. So you can see here that so far we're getting the results we expect. All right. And then the last one is we join the foregoing result set to the rental table. So we're going to join a rental table. Now this is important. We're going to use a left join. Now we've been using inner join, which means that we're only going to get results that have a match. Well, if I used an inner join, and since I got everybody on spot here and there's only a few of us, since I've got you, I'm going to ask a question, see if we can kind of tease it out of you a little bit. If we did a join with an inner join, what would be the problem, or how many rows would we get? See if anyone, see if we can get any risk takers. And I guess to tease it out just a little bit, remember that we brought all this data in from a CSV file, and an inner join only returns where there's matches. And so if we're doing a join to rental based on the information in transaction upload, does that data, because the data exists in transaction upload, but does it exist in rental? No rows, exactly. Yeah, because all of our data is in transactional, but the reason we're doing a left join is to take out any existing rows. Because if we had if we did basically we want to say, look, connect to rental if you can. We want everything we have so far, because we want everything in transaction upload, because that's the whole reason we're bringing it in. But left join to rental, because later on we're actually going to say, look, if it's already there, we're going to update it instead of doing insert, that'll be a merge for next time. But basically we want to connect, because we want to know, okay, is this like something we've already done, or is this new, which we'll show here in just a second. So we're going to take and we're going to do a left join. Left join to rental R, and we are going to do that on, and it says that we are going to join to there on the contact ID. Is equal to R dot, and this one's kind of tricky. This one, it's actually customer ID. That's one of those few ones where they don't have the same name, but they still reference each other. So it's good. So the customer ID of the rental table, and the truncated checkout date and truncated return date between transaction upload and rental. So let's start out with checkout date, and it says to truncate, so we'll do that. Checkout date up, and we want to make sure we use transaction upload dot checkout date is equal to r dot checkout date. And in this case, the trunk is really just a precaution, but it's always good. R dot return date. And then we should be good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take and copy this, because I like to see meaningful data when I'm testing. And this will give us some, but it's only from one source. So what I'm going to do is just to check, what we're going to do is I'm going to say r.rental ID, because that will tell us if it's new or not. Because if rental ID has a value, then it's existing. If rental ID is null, then we know it's new. So we're going to get a rental ID, and then obviously the checkout date and return date don't matter too much from rental. So we're going to get the checkout date from transaction and the return date from transaction. And let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. We should get quite a few more rows this time. 4,681. So we can see that these people really like to rent their movies. But the important part is we can see up here, I guess it's too low, but most of those, we actually aren't seeing a rental ID. I would show you the column, but it's too far up. So the rental ID is null, which means that all of these are new rows, which is to be expected. That's kind of why we're doing it, because we didn't interjoin the transaction upload. They're all new. But that means that our query is ready. So let's go up here. And when we run this, you should actually get something like this. Right there, 4,681 rows selected. Now you can see the null for rental ID, but this actually matches exactly what goes into rental. So now when we need to do our insert into rental, right down here, you'll notice that it says remainder of the join solution. Well, we have the whole thing, so I'm just going to take the whole caboodle here, minus the semicolon, and I'm just going to replace what's already here because it's the same thing. Now remember, we want to put this inside of here, so we're just going to paste that like that. And let's go ahead and fix our tabs so they work right. And I'm going to just run this right in the terminal. Oh, and we get a problem, and it's probably because I haven't ran something. Actually, in my case, it's because my numbers are a little different. So I'm just going to say 1, 1. That's because my system user table, I don't have one that starts with 1001. So let's try that again. And you'll notice that we get 4,681 rows created, which is perfect. Now, one thing that I want to show you now is if we were to run this query again, it's all connected, but you'll notice that the big difference now is that we will get a rental. Let's run this one because this one will show us the not nulls there. This time, instead of rental ID being null, you'll notice that we have all these rental IDs because now we've inserted that data. So that data actually exists now in rental. So if I select count from rental, we get 4,689 rows, which is exactly what we want from that one. So that's essentially what we're going to do. Now I'm going to kind of walk you through half of the next one to show you a mapping. So that should give you an idea, or a translation, because all these were mappings. We didn't do anything crazy there. I guess we kind of did with the contact ID, but this one's going to be a little different because when we do rental item, which is what we're going to do our next insert with, we are going to have to map to common lookup. And common lookup kind of adds this level of complexity, which is really good because it's very much needed, but it adds some extra steps that make it just a tad more confusing. So let's go take a look. So we're good with step number 1. All right, so step number 2, again, we have a lot of this, and you'll notice that a lot of it is kind of already, or I guess this one, we're actually going to take this and grab this because it's kind of funny. Up above, they don't really give you as much, but if you go right down below, they give you a little bit more. So we can actually start right here, which is actually right where we left off with our other query. So because we already are halfway there, right? To have rental items, we need to have rental. So we're going to just kind of take off where we were at. But yeah, let's jump into these instructions. All right. So step 2. All right. And it says, join the result set from the first query solution of this lab's first step. And so, like I just said, the one thing that's missing out of here is the rental step. So I'm going to jump up here and grab our left join from rental. And I'm going to do it from up here so we don't have any extra stuff from our query, not from the insert. Because we actually want that left join there. There. Now, so basically you take the from clause down from your step one and plug it in there, and we're that much closer. And we're going to join that to the common lookup table. And we're going to do that, affect the join between a subtable inside common lookup table rather than join to the common lookup table. And basically what we're doing is we're going to make sure we connect it to rental item and rental item type. And then this one's going to be a little bit more vague because it's not going to give it to us. So let's go ahead. We're going to do an inner join, common lookup. And we're going to call it CL1. Remember, we want to make sure we take a look at our, well, I guess that's just CL. So we're going to do CL, and we're going to do that on, and this is where we have to kind of do a little bit of manual work because we know this is going into rental item. So we're going to say on common or CL common lookup dot common lookup table is equal to rental item. You know, before we do this, let's take a look. Let's take a gander. So if I just select everything from transaction upload, and let's just limit this. Let's just select the first few. If we take a look at here, what we're trying to get is the rental item type, right? If we take a look at this query, cl.common lookup ID is rental item type. So what we need for rental item type is our 1 day, 3 day, and 5 day rental. We can kind of look right in here because if we look at common lookup, we will have those in there. So let's select everything from common lookup, where common lookup table is equal to rental item. And we could, let's just take it one step further and we can say, and common lookup column, that's why we kind of change that design, is equal to rental item type, because we can see exactly what kind of data we're trying to get. So we can see here, we're trying to pick whether we should choose one of these based on some data in here. So if we look in our transaction upload, I see a 3-day rental, and down here I see a 3-day rental. So what we're going to join on is just similar stuff to right here. Is we want to take this exact set of filtering, because we want it where common lookup tables is rental item, common lookup column is rental item type, and then we're going to match from transaction uploads transaction type to common lookup type. So just kind of like what we just did. So where common lookup table is equal to rental item, common lookup column is equal to rental item type. And this is where we got to kind of do our fun stuff. So this is where transaction upload, and let's make sure we have the right column name. What do you know? Rental item type. So really isn't even that complicated because they have the same name. So rental item type. But you'll notice that we added a middleman. It's not like we go straight from RI rental item type. And that's because if we looked in rental item table, it references a common lookup ID. So we have to go through common lookup to get at that value or to insert that value. So we're going to say rental item type is equal to common lookup dot common lookup type. Right. Just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do this and try it out. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and copy our from clause, And I'm going to write my own kind of stuff here. So I'm going to select distinct, because what I really want to test here is our join to common lookup, because that's all we've added. So what I want to do is let's get transaction upload dot rental item type. Let's get common lookup dot rental item type, or common lookup dot common lookup type. And you know what? Let's get the type so it matches. And then we want to see what the common lookup ID is, just to see what value we're actually getting. So let's go ahead and run this. And I did select distinct, so we're going to get fewer rows. So we'll just see the unique combinations. So it looks like people only did 3-day rentals. But the important part here is that we see that this from rental or from transaction upload is a 3-day rental. We get the corresponding 3-day rental and common lookup, which means that when we actually insert into the table, it's going to be a value of 1,024, which is perfect. Because when we get here, that will actually be 1,024. And just like that, I think we're ready. Oh, nope, we need one more because we went to common lookup. So now we need to join to rental item table using a left join. So just like we did with rental in the first step, we're going to do the same thing down lower, but we are going to do it obviously with the rental item table because that's what we're trying to insert into. So let's say left join rental item RI, and we do that on resolves when you use rental r.rental ID is equal to ri.rental ID. So that one's actually nice and easy because we already inserted into rental. So if there's no matching rental in rental item, then we know it's new. So we can actually go ahead and, whoa. Let's try that again here. I think because it's all zoomed in, it scrolls super, super fast. Remember, this is just the select. So you'll notice that those are all null, which means that they're all going to be new records, and 11,520 rows, which is exactly what we want, I believe. Let's go take a look. 11,520 rows. Perfect. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to get our from clause. And if you're getting half of what you should be, if you're not getting the rows you expect, it's most likely because something is not connecting. So like on the first one, my guess is, and we can kind of narrow it down to really a few items. So I would check the account numbers because in lab 7, we did account numbers. Make sure the account numbers are all matching. Because if I had to guess, my guess is that there's probably a mix match in account numbers. And so we can do some troubleshooting. So what I would do if you're not getting the number of rows that you want, we do an inner join. But if we swap our join to a left join, we can get all the rows, right? So what I would do is I would say left join on transaction upload. We keep everything else the same. And then we're going to add a where clause. And all we're going to do is we're going to say where tu dot account number is null. And what this is going to do is it's going to tell us exactly where our matches aren't at. We're going to take that out because it doesn't matter. So let's see where our matches are not happening. And you can run that. And obviously I'd have to fix that. Let's take that out. Because I'll break this real quick. I'll break my thing. So let's just break the potters. So let's first see what their member ID is. So let's select everything from member, where, member M, inner join, contact, C on M dot member ID is equal to C dot member ID, where Potter. Okay, so their member ID is 1009. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say update member, set member, let's set account number, equal to, and let's just change that to SLC dash 100006, where member ID is equal to 1009. All right, so I just broke mine on purpose, and so I could show you how this query works, because we changed this to a left join, it means we're going to get all the members, all the contacts in our table. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to see where we don't have matches in transaction upload. So let's go here based on the account number. So now I can do some diagnostics, because if my account numbers aren't matching, boom, there we go. We get to see that. And even if your account numbers are matching, let's say that a name was wrong. So let's fix the what was theirs? SLC. I guess I just put it exactly to what it was, but I think I left a number off. So let's just take and copy this. Let's paste it here. Oh, that did not work the way it was supposed to, because I copied. There we go. All right. Now, I guess I could just rerun let's just do that. Apply Oracle lab10.sql. What do we got here? Apparently in the lab 9 folder, which works. So I'm going to rerun my lab 9, because then it will rebuild everything, which is correct. There we go. So now we're back to normal. So let's paste this back in here, because I should get no rows now, because get out of there, because everything's working. But let's break Lily Luna's name. So let's update contact set middle name equal to or let's break a first name. Let's set first name equal to Lily, all with 2 L's, where first name is equal to Lily. So now if we rerun that query again, you'll notice that we get the person who's broken. So what I would do is I would run a validation query similar to this. Basically change your left join on transaction upload, and that will give us a good indicator of where we're wrong. So typical, if you want to find non-matches, which is great for diagnostic, if we want to find non-matches, left join where something is null in the other table. Because you can see here that our transaction upload account number is null, our transaction upload last name is null. Everything from transaction upload is null. So you can kind of check on those. But there's a good diagnostic query if you're not getting the results you expect. Because somewhere, basically what that screams to me is if you're getting that less rows, is that there's somebody who's not matching, whether it's Lily or somebody. Oh, and before I fix that back, what I want to do is just to kind of help give you an idea, because maybe by pure circumstance, Lily doesn't match and it will give us that number of rows, but I kind of doubt it, but we're going to try it. Yeah, so I think my guess is that it's your account number. I would check your account numbers, because it sounds like those are off, which can happen. I know that for whatever reason, the SLC ones will like go up by like 12, or like they'll be up higher. And in that case, what I would do is I would actually restart your virtual machine and run it and let it go. All right. But yeah, it looks like it's your account number. So where we were at on step 2 is we got all the way to, we finished the query. And I guess to make this work, since I reran everything, Yeah, so Breton, where those account numbers are up in that 10 to 15 range, I would actually restart your virtual machine, not just close the X and do that. I would actually power it off, turn it back on, um, and run your scripts again. Because sometimes it just, for whatever reason, I've seen it just get off, and I actually don't have an explanation for it. Um, it's just something weird. There is actually, now that I say that, in your file, um, another thing that's really helpful that we can do to kind of diagnose just a little bit. Yeah, and hold off on that for just a minute because I would be curious. So in lab 9, where we do that, let me go to this one because this one is the recent one. So if I open this up, there's this little thing here. So what I would do is this, because we can see what is actually happening. So right here it says it has the debug. So in your log file, this actually might already be there. But it says, you'll notice that it says debug :1. And then right here, it says if debug is equal to 1, then, and it's going to debug. So somewhere in here, when you run this, which one is it? When you run the procedure update member account, it should spit out it'll say debugging consumed by ID numbers. It'll spit out a list, and that will give us a good indicator if it's skipping somebody or if it's just being weird. So if you want, Breton, send me this little chunk right here where it says debugging consumed ID numbers from your log file. And it'll give us a good indicator because we should see it skip over something or it'll do something. But from what I've seen, it actually, I think if my memory's serving me well, last time I encountered this, it actually was just putting them out of order. And I don't know if it's a weird character thing, but it actually would, when it did the order by the account number, it would actually put it a little out of order a little bit, I guess, just a little bit. So, so yeah, I would check that. Let's see, and we can do some stuff to debug in a minute. So, if you're still having that issue, when we get towards the end, we'll take a look. Okay, so let me rerun. Did I do my insert? That's lab 9. There's our demo lab 10. Let's copy this. There we go. I'm just going to check and make sure we have the right number of rental rows. Something doesn't seem right there. Or wait, I did rental items. So let's try. Yeah, let's clean up and just rerun that. All right, here's our insert into rental. So let's go ahead, grab you. Paste there, rows inserted. Let's go back here and we're going to do step 2. We had our insert. This is where we left off because we had our select statement all done. So basically all we have to do is grab our from clause, and I'm just going to replace this one here. And we get 11,520 rows selected. Okay, and I think that is pretty much that for step 2 should be done. I'm going to let you guys do step 3. They really give you quite a bit. You just have to build the from clause, but they really walk you through it pretty well. So I'm going to let you guys do step 3, if that's all right. And I'm actually going to help debug this issue real quick because I think a lot of people will actually hit this issue. So what's interesting here is if we take a look, like I said, I don't know, can you guys see the chat? I don't know if the chat shows. Does the chat show on my screen right here for you guys? It might blur it out. Okay, so just so it works for people who don't know, I'm going to take and copy this. So what we're seeing here is the debug, which is really nice. It's a really nice part of the script, which can help us. And apparently that only copied one row at a time here. So let's try that again. Copy. Oh, it put it all on one row is what it did. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. And actually, let's just do this. Let's go find, and we are looking for, we're going to replace that with ID / new line. I don't know if that'll actually do a carriage return, but we can make it. Let's just finagle this here real quick. Take and copy a new line, paste it in there, and boom, there we go. Okay, so what we're seeing here is the debug portion of that script. And what it's doing is every time it finds an account number, it's logging it for us. So we can see here that it's not skipping over anything. It literally just for whatever reason is starting with SLC 00000011. So it's skipping the first little bit, which is obviously no bueno. So what we're going to do to try to debug this is we're going to reverse engineer our labs, the query within there that is doing that. So inside lab 9, we're going to go through every member. So basically we're grabbing the member, and then for every member, we are going to get this information right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and copy this, and we're going to use the Potters as our test because they're just, we know who they are. And we know their city is Provo and their state is Utah. So we're going to take this. I'm going to take and let's copy this. Let's delete that. Because what we're going to do here is I'm going to take this query because we're going to see if it's skipping it. We're going to say the airport city is equal to Provo. State province is equal to Utah. And did we change them to? Okay, so they are the full typed out names. So let's grab that. We're going to take out this little into thing because we obviously don't have that. And we're going to see exactly what it's going to pull. So here I can see that the first one is 1007. So Brett, and I'm going to ask you to do this here real quick because what we're going to do is we're actually going to clean up to the point of lab 7 where we're doing this. So let's see. It's in lab 8 is when we do that. Yes. Or lab 8 would be the one prior. So I'm going to run my lab 8. Then I'm actually going to open up my lab 9, wherever that may be here. And this is obviously the uncompleted one. So I'm going to open up my lab 9. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off everything except for where we execute. So there's our seed account list, which we want the seeded account list. I am just going to comment out my execute update member account. So I'm just going to take and been typing too much Python. I'm going to take and comment that out. And I'm also going to comment out, well, I guess that's good. So let's go ahead and I'm going to run my lab 9 file here. And because what we're going to end up with is everything except for having the account numbers created. So if we can get to this point, we want to make sure that we have everything up to, make it so we can run lab 9. So in my case, I just took and commented out where it, I commented out where it actually executes the update member account because we want to skip that step right now so we can debug this just a little bit. So once we get to this point, now what we can do is we can run this query here, and I can see exactly where the SLC accounts will start. So you can see SLC 001, which is what we would expect. But for you, that's not happening. It's starting at SLC 11 or whatever. And last time I encountered this, it was purely just I couldn't make heads or tails of it. And so what we're going to do is if you can get to this point for me, I want to verify and make sure that yours is going to say SLC 00017. And if it does, I'll try something to test real quick. Problem is that there's not much we can do there because we're ordering by account number, unless, like I said, unless there's some weird character issue, is the only thing I can make sense of. But what I've had people do is restart. Yep. And so JP, yours looks exactly as it should. It should go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's exactly how it should look, because basically it's going through. And if you're in the SLC area, if you were in the Salt Lake City region, it start with 1. And then if it finds another one, it'll go to 2. Which is exactly what we want. But if you look, Breton's is actually skipping 1 through 10, and it's going straight to 11. And we can actually look and see what it's doing. Basically, every time it says, "Oh, I have a new member that I need to give a thing to," it's going to look and it's going to run this query that we just ran, and it's going to pull the next available number. But once it's consumed, like, so for example, if I say update account list set consumed date equal to sysdate, is equal to, okay, so that actually confuses me further because the query is indeed working. So let's take a look here. But basically, just to show this, if I ran that and then we rerun our little query here, once 1's consumed, we're going to end up with SLC2, and it's going to continue that process. So real quick, let me rerun. Let's see, I can run my lab 9. I'm going to run my lab 9, and we're going to take a look at that. And we're going to try to debug this just a little bit further, because we run through our member. I'm just going to look and see. Okay, so it says debugging, and it selects the account number. If the debug is equal to 1, then DBMS output line. And it would make more sense if your SJC numbers were duplicated too, because if you rerun this multiple times, you actually end up doing that. But what's strange, I'm trying to think. So let's do this. Let's add. I'm going to have you add this. So in your lab 9, in this section right here, where it says if debug is equal to 1, we're going to add here just a little bit. So right after the then, we're just going to do another return, and we're going to say DBMS output dot put line, which is basically how we print to the console. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to try to tease out of this why it's doing what it's doing. Because right now what we're getting is it's going to basically try to get the account number out of there. So we're going to have a walk through person by person, and we're going to see if we can just get it. So what we're going to put in here is we're going to just put C Let's see, where would we need to go? Because from here, if we get it from I, let's get, yeah, let's do I dot member ID. Because now we're going to get 2 lines. So we'll see the member ID and then the account number that it's going to try to do. Now, all this is based on the city and state. So what we're also going to output, let's just concatenate it instead. Let's concatenate a space, and then we're going to get I dot city, concatenate a space, I dot state province. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there so we can see it. And let's see what I need to do, because I don't think this is in mind. So what I'm actually going to do is we're just going to go like this. I'm going to go ahead and add this to my Lab 9. Right after our little thing here. So let me save that. Let's go ahead and run it. And oh, but I guess I didn't execute it. So let's take out that comment, because I turned mine off so we could see. But let's just turn that back on and let's rerun. So make sure to recomment your thing there. Let's see. There we go. So here's our results. So now we can see the various information. So if you can get to this point here, let me know if you need me to send you that query or anything. But by adding that, we can kind of see it goes step by step here. So we can see that for member ID 1001, they live in San Jose, California. And then it queried SJC2 or SJC1, 1002 got SJC2, 1003 got 3. Then we move into the Provo, Utahs. Let's try that and see. I wonder if there's something weird going on with member. That'll give us a close indication, I think. And we can go back and take a look at that code here real quick. I just added DBMS output line with some information there so we could kind of try to tease that out. This would actually, it should be in your Lab 9 folder or file in the .SQL file. It'll be inside the update member account procedure. What's strange, all right, so I'm taking a look at your chat there. 2, 3. Hey, I don't know what changed, but that worked that time. So that actually worked. So yeah, I'm still confused. Still don't know. but yeah. I can't make heads or tails of it either. But if you ever come across an issue, and I'm going to show you this just because if you ever come across a weird issue like that, one of the best things you can do, like on all things technology, is restart the database. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to restart that database. So you're going to want to be just in a new terminal. So I'm actually going to, let's just close this. I'm going to take and close all this. close that. So let's open up a new terminal, not drag it, open it. And we're gonna restart it. So the first thing we need to do is elevate our privileges to the super user. So we're gonna say sudo su, which just stands for as super user do super user. So we're gonna make ourselves admin, and then our password is can get in, just like logging in. So sudo su, password is can get in, and then you'll see this root here. And now that we're root, now we can change to Oracle. So we're going to log in as the Oracle user. And then we're going to say SQL plus a blank / as sysdba. And now we're logged in as the root of the database. And so now what we can do is we can do certain things like shut down immediate. And that's actually going to shut down the database system. You'll see that it's closed, dismounted, all that kind of stuff. And then to start it back up, you just say startup. And it starts back up. So you can try that. If that doesn't work, I would say just restart the whole virtual machine. But once you get to this point, you can just type exit all the way until the window closes. Then you're good. So anyways, I'm actually glad you came across that, because people come across it, and I always try troubleshooting, but I can almost definitively say now that it's just some weird bug, which is really funny. But anyways, that guy should give you guys a good start into lab 10. Nope. So your labs, everything's left off right where it is. Basically, by turning off the database, we kind of say, look, just stop where you're at. All the files that are there still in the background, everything's still there. People do it all, if they're doing maintenance, a lot of times they'll turn off the database and the service just is offline until they bring it back up. But nope, everything's right where you left it. You just turned it off and back on. All the files are still there. You don't need to rerun your files or anything like that. So I would just say, if I were you, I'd just jump right into lab 10. You should be good. So, and you should get better results now that your account numbers match. But anyways, thanks for being here. Like always, if you have questions, let me know.